Hello, everyone. I'm John Lind, the founder and chief editor at Healthcare IT Today. We're excited to bring you another in our series of interviews with top leaders in health IT. We have an amazing panel of guests today. We have Cletis Earle. He's CIO at Penn State Health and Penn State University College of Medicine. And Harsh Singh. He's GM Healthcare at Genzeon. And Prashant Krishnakamur. He's VP Digital Engineering at Genzeon. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, John. Excited to be here.
Yeah, excited for this discussion. I think this is right in the sweet spot of what everyone wants to hear about, which is automation, because we're all burnt out and need some help. So before we dive into the topic, Cletis, why don't you kick us off? Tell us a little bit about yourself and Penn State Health.
Thanks so much, John. It's just been a very interesting journey. I'm here going on 3 years in a couple of weeks. And as you can imagine, at Penn State Health and College of Medicine, we've gone through within those 3 years, the pandemic. So you could imagine as a new CIO coming on board, when you have your normal CIO things you need to do is evaluating, we went right into the pandemic. So we went right into pandemic mode, and it's been a journey ever since. As we were doing all of those things, it was interesting. We just recently published a document that 5 years ago, Penn State Health and Highmark basically set out to change the healthcare landscape in central Pennsylvania. And we invested about $1 billion worth of initiatives. And that included creating new hospitals, 2 new hospitals, M&A, many practices. And we just really wrapped that up, right, this year. So you could imagine during a pandemic, we basically brought up 3 hospitals within a year, multiple health, organization service lines, as well as a pediatric center, a major pediatric center, and just did a bunch of other things when we were during the pandemic. So to your question, how's things going? It's been pretty busy. We've been in, regardless of where the organization is with the pandemic and all of those things, we've been doing a lot of work when it comes to our growth. And now we're in the optimization phase. So, this is a timely conversation about process automation, because it's really where the rubber meets the road and where we think the future is going to take us. So excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Glad to see you've been taking it easy.
I
don't think anyone.
Kudos to my team. Kudos to my team. They're just amazing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Harsh, tell us about yourself and Genzeon.
Yeah, thanks, John. Excited, first of all, to be having this conversation. A little bit of my background here, certainly, here at Genzeon, leading the healthcare practice and the healthcare market here. Genzeon is a technology company focused on healthcare primarily, and we have the opportunity to work with strong leaders like Cletis in the provider segment, which is a significant part of our business. Also on the payer side, we work with companies and help them with their digital transformation efforts, and also digital health companies. So we are a healthcare technology company, very focused on delivering value. And in context of that, excited to be having this conversation around intelligent automation, which is a practice that we significantly rely on in driving value for our clients. So thank you for having us, and excited to be here.
Yeah, that's great. And Prashant, tell us about yourself.
Thank you, John. So I've been with Genzeon now for over a year, leading the digital engineering practice, where intelligent automation is one of our key offerings, right? And what I've seen really in the last 3 years, especially since the pandemic came about, is automation was always talked about a lot, but it really hit mainstream, right? Because with the pandemic, the whole thinking shifted of how we do work. And with that, I see a shift in how people think about automation, how automation is seen not just as a cool thing to have, but a real value enabler, and not just cost efficiency value enabler, but experience value enabler. The different kinds of value enablers that I see with automation, and it's really exciting, right? And I still feel it's early days in the maturity curve for automation. It's a long way to go. So it's a good part of the journey, and good to talk to you today about that.
Yeah. It is exciting times. And I think, Harsh, maybe you could give us a little groundwork here. Talk a little bit about what you see in the industry when it comes to things like costs, margins, and the economic pressures that these healthcare organizations are facing.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair question going into 2023 here, John. I think one of the things that a lot of our clients are facing, right? Coming out of pandemic, folks were like, hey, we had this pressure of digital transformation and we needed to digitally enable everything just to even survive and stay open. But going into 2023, there are significant cost pressures. And that's true, especially true for a lot of health systems going into the next year. And I'm sure Cletis, as you look at into the future, that's something on your roadmap. But we're hearing from clients that, hey, the pressure is on. It's not just about digital transformation for the sake of being open. Now it's digital transformation to drive cost efficiency. And I think, clients are focused on operational cost reduction coming out of pandemic, right? And I think at Genzeon, we are very focused on driving that cost efficiency through our product platforms. Coming out of intelligent automation is our digitization as a service product platform, our digital worker product platform, specifically focused on addressing the needs that we are hearing from clients that, hey guys, it's great. We started our digital transformation journey. Now it's the time to see value out of that journey in terms of cost efficiency. And that's where Genzeon is focused, and that's where our clients are focused.
Yeah, it's interesting. The EHR we kind of slapped in there chasing stimulus money as opposed to some of these cost analysis. I think it's a change of mindset. Cletis, what would you add, kind of given some of these dynamics, what's your perception and kind of experience with intelligent automation, and what's its role in value creation and maybe the impact on your workforce?
Yeah, I think that, intelligent automation is going to be the cornerstone, the new cornerstone to how we operate. And the reason why I go down that road, if you go back 5-7 years ago, as this was a hot word, right? Kind of like a big data concept, it was okay. Yeah, we need it. It will come eventually. But we didn't know as a society that we're going to have this little thing called the pandemic that was going to change everything. And it changed us in so many ways, particularly around our workforce capacity, right? Every vertical, every sector has been impacted, right? Yeah. It's not just technology, it's just everywhere. And we hear it on and on and on that we can't find the right amount of employees. We've seen the job numbers, right, recently, where two for every 2 jobs is 1 person, blah blah blah. And the key here is, if you look at other sectors, where particularly around the retail space, let's use McDonald's as an example. They started this journey a while ago. I don't know if they had the foresight. I think they were doing it more monetarily, but that foresight to create kiosks in McDonald's that you go to, right, and making sure there's automation set up so that you don't have to really rely on the frontline staff that's no longer coming, right? They're not able to hire them quick enough. Is an augmenter. I don't know if we're ready to replace people, and I don't think so. And I know that's not our intention to replace people, but we have to figure out how you use intelligent automation to augment, right? To be able to fill in some of the gaps that we're not able to have, particularly as we're trying to accommodate some of those things I mentioned. Penn State, we're in the optimization mode right now, right? We're figuring it out. So we need to, as we are struggling like others to find the right talent, we need to be able to insert intelligent automation, and we have, working with Genzeon, insert intelligent automation so that we're working smarter, not harder. You've heard that all in all, and I truly think intelligent automation is the component to make us achieve that particular concept. So I really see in the future, as things then become more intelligent and we go to a predictive methodology, right? I see that intelligent automation is going to continue to help us enhance our workflows in the future, in the very near future. We're not talking about 10 years from now. We're talking about now in the next 2 years, really helping achieve those bottom lines where we're able to do before, right? And, you know, we're not able to fill some of those roles. We see burnout occurring exponentially at the provider side, at the, you know, the nursing side, even at the back end side. I do see there's some, again, level of assistance that intelligent automation is going to help us, you know, achieve some of our next year goals.
Wow. I love the example of McDonald's. I literally just went to McDonald's, got my sausage muffin, didn't talk to someone until they handed me it, and I walked out, right? Like, you know, that doesn't happen in healthcare. Yeah, and maybe, you know, it can't fully the same way, but what are some areas, Cletis, real quick, you know, that you're looking at to automate? Because I think that's the question a lot of CIOs say, well, where do I start? What are some areas you're starting with?
Yeah, well, we started with Genzeon's help is, you know, looking at the back end side, right? The areas we looked at where we are as far as uptime when it comes to our systems, and we had some opportunity, right? We had some areas where we needed to improve, right? We were seeing significant amount of interruption occurring throughout our organization. As we dug deeper into it, we realized that, hey, you know, some of these things, some of this downtime could have been prevented, whether it's, you know, utilization at the server level wasn't, you know, maximized, right? We saw storage that tends to happen a lot, right? You run out of storage space, and storage then ends up having downstream effects, you know, to your customers. And we realized that if we could get better at intelligent automation and realizing that we can get our teams, get the tools to look at the back end from a monitoring. And I know system monitoring has been around for a long time. This is not anything new, but how do you now say, okay, it's not just at your NOCs and your SOCs, right? Your operation centers. How do you get it out of the hands of your operation centers and really putting intelligence behind, hey, when something occurs, it's routing to the area that needs to get it done immediately, not necessarily waiting for somebody, an operations center person, seeing something and say, oh, let me do it, and then putting the burden on that individual. So you put what we've done is being able to put the level of automation and the appropriate routing. We just implemented the whole workflow where the system is now routing to our service management system, right? So that it can be distributed and it can be managed effectively. So we've seen, you know, once we've implemented this particular solution, we've seen disruption decrease exponentially. I mean, it is just amazing to see. And I know, you know, this is unfortunately in technology, your customers don't ever, you know, say, oh, wow, we see a great improvement. But we've seen it on the back end, and the data shows that we've significantly reduced the amount of outage, and that creates more efficiency for our customers at the bottom line. So I'm very proud, and again, partnered with Genzeon to you know, stand something up, and we're still working through it, right? I think it's a living process, but we still work through that dynamic. And my future vision is to see how we take this and then tie it into everything, whether it's cloud-based, whether it's, you know, other areas of our systems, ERPs, and EMRs, and all of those other areas, you know, at the interface level, right, where a lot of disruption occurs through organizations. You know, imagine if you're having that level of intelligent automation occur, where you're able to actively stop issues before it ever happens. That's where our Nirvana state is going to be.
The best IT. You solved it so that no one has to reach out to you. I love it. Prashant, what would you add from kind of the Genzeon perspective when it comes to this intelligent automation?
We look at intelligent automation. I would like to flip it to say automation with intelligence, right?
Okay.
Because automation has always been there, right? It's been part of what we do it, right? But the intelligence is a new paradigm in many ways, right? And traditionally, when we talk about intelligence automation, people think about RPA or robotics, right? Robotic process automation. But intelligent automation is so much more, right? Because the way we look at it is our philosophy of intelligent automation, or automation with intelligence, if I may say, is process first, right? Because at the end of the day, you're automating business processes, right? The example that Cletis gave, right? The IT operational process, right, where potentially fragmented, multiple data points spread across. Until you know and streamline that process, you don't want to automate a bad process. You first streamline the process. So think process first, do process engineering, and then bring in the right automation tool, right? And again, the tools vary. RPA is definitely a good tool, but you have to use the right tool for the right problem, right solution for the right problem. So from RPA to natural language processing, machine learning, right? These are different tools, right? When you bring them together and chain them together to solve the use cases, then the magic happens with intelligent automation, right? That's one. Second is what we are seeing is that intelligent automation and the digital journey, they're kind of converging right now. Everybody talked about whole digital enablement, intelligent automation separately, but it's coming together now. It's really similar journey, right? So I would say process first, digital first. That should be the mantra for everybody as you think about automation, right? Because an automation automatically comes into what you do, right? And third is what I would say is how you think about the value that automation generates, right? Traditionally, cost efficiency was always the foundational value for why we do automation, but automation is so much more, right? It's a perfect example of an iceberg where cost efficiency is that small thing at the top, but all the hidden values are there at the bottom, which you don't see. And one big value, which I always see, is experience, right? Again, to Cletis' point, that automation that Genzeon and Penn State worked on together was, again, it improved, I bet, the experience of the associate, the technology associates who day-to-day work on the operational processes, right? So experience not only internal associates, but also external customers, how automation and digital enablement can change their experience is profound. And once we start measuring it, you will really see the impact. It's not easy to measure, right? But once we start measuring it, that's when the magic happens.
Yeah. If I could chime in here, and to Prashant's point, you know, for other CIOs or executives who are looking to undertake this task, you know, Prashant's spot on. The devil's in the details here, right? And the details are where most of the work has to happen. And that's a lot of preliminary discovery at the business level, trying to figure out the various nuances. And when we did this with Genzeon, and this is why you need to have a great partner that's going to be able to work with you to figure it out, map it out. It took a long time, no doubt, right? There was, you know, and I was on the back end because, you know, you make an investment and you're like, okay, where is it? Where's the results? But at the end of the day, the preliminary work, right? The work to get us to the state of intelligent automation was essential. And it requires a partner to come in and truly partner with you. And I'm not saying that to take it lightly, but to really understand the business, understand the various nuances, because that's complicated. And our Genzeon folks, they understand the healthcare business, and I'm pretty sure other sectors as well. But going into that was extremely important. And it was only until we did that, then we were able to truly, you know, monitor and then get that, you know, tweak things effectively, because they were able to take time to understand the various nuances. Every healthcare is different. Every healthcare organization is different. There's no question about that. And those nuances needs to be mapped out based on the business practices, because, and it's so important. So I just wanted to emphasize that this is not a turn the key and you get it done process. It took us a little while, but it far outweighed that weight, and that level of due diligence was absolutely essential for us to help, you know, be effective as possible.
But Cletis, talk about that from an HR perspective. You said, yeah, you want to augment, right? Which, you know, I think these days many people want it replaced because they're doing 3 jobs, right? Like, but that said, like, you bring up an interesting point about the expertise required to do this automation. I know Penn State's in Happy Valley. I'm not sure if you have the same recruiting problems as some healthcare organizations, but, you know, talk about that play between automation and an HR perspective, and you know, you being able to use it to, you know, to address some of those HR challenges.
Yeah, well, you know, it's interesting is Penn State, the university, we have a lot of students, right? Over 100,000 students, and you would think that we have an outlet, right, to be able to tap into those. Doesn't always pan out that way, and I hear that from my colleagues as well. But we're a big enough brand, right, with this lion behind me, big enough brand that can attract talent. But at the end of the day, there's still challenges of recruiting. So I think there's, to answer your question, I think just like every other business, I don't care if you're Google, Amazon, or whatever, and you're hearing it, everybody is struggling to bring in the talent. It's just the phenomenon, right, that's occurring across the globe. So, I think the conversations to augment is not, we have to be very careful, because I know when the EMR first came out, the concerns that our providers said, it will not replace us, right? That was the whole thing. And the concept was not to replace doctors. That's not our intention. It's to help you. Automation and augmentation is to help our teams, right? As particularly we have a bunch of positions we're not able to fill, in a timely manner. Our goal is, well, how do we help? And that was the conversation we had with HR to say, hey, this is not a replacement strategy. This is a complementary strategy to our teams so that we can get better. And oh, by the way, it helped in a perverse way, right? That we weren't able to find people because the technology really started to kick in certain areas to show that this level of intelligent automation works for our organization. And you don't always have to have somebody sitting there looking at a particular screen and looking for that little red shiny object to occur. You can now recast those individuals that may have been doing that work to do other work. Again, skilling up and doing different areas so you can help in other ways where there are some gaps in your organization.
Harsh, let's loop you in as well. Sorry, we got going, but
this is exciting. This is exciting conversation. I'm glad we got it going. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, talk about this. Cletis talks about helping their staff, augmenting them. I heard a CIO one time tell me that, hey, if you're not looking at a low code, no code solution, then you're missing out, because there's a lot of opportunity there. So talk about that whole low code, no code solutions, and really how are they going to be used to address some of these HR workforce challenges that Cletis talked about?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question, right? I think as Prashant was earlier mentioning, right, I think there is a convergence between what we talk about intelligent automation / automation with intelligence and digital transformation efforts. I think low code, no code platforms are coming at that intersection. They're like, hey guys, not only do you need to do this, you need to do this faster, better, and at a much more cost effective fashion, right? I think historically, if you look at IT industry, right, we have survived and thrived on building custom solutions all the time, right? I think, if you look at the history, we're like, oh, even vendors like us, we come in and we say, hey, I think we need a custom solution here, right? It's what we knew. It's how we solve problems. But over years and years, and that's there true in auto industry as, all the way back to Model T, when you create platforms, it creates opportunities to do this in a cheaper, faster fashion. And we are at that stage in technology, and especially application of technology in healthcare. As we go into next year with economic pressures, we need to think about how do we use platforms to do certain things faster, cheaper, and better. And that, I think that's the intersection there for low code, no code platforms to come in. I would say the companies that have made that investment in low code, no code platforms, right, they're looking to leverage those investments to show the results, right? I mentioned that at the beginning of the call and the discussion here, saying there are economic pressures, right? Folks who have invested in Salesforce, ServiceNow, they're like, okay, I want to see that return. I want to see that value on that investment. And these platforms promise, as you do custom development on them, 40 to 60% reduced time to market and reduce cost post the investment that was made initially, right? So I think our job here, not just specifically to Salesforce or ServiceNow, our job as an industry now is to look at low code, no code platforms and say, how do we deliver value in delivering these solutions faster and cheaper? to our healthcare clients, right? I think that's the journey we are on, and that's the journey I think our clients want us to be on, right? That's where Genzeon is now focused on, working with our partners, our clients, to say, hey, how can we help you take your existing investments that you've made in these platforms and build the solutions and build automation with intelligence to deliver the value you are looking for.
Well, and talk about that also from a low code, no code perspective. It's great that you can build anything, but going back to some of the previous discussions, is it replacing people? Do you see there's a need to like take a more global look, kind of leveraging humans as part of the solution? What's Genzeon's view on kind of software as a solution versus humans, and kind of that balance between the two?
I think Cletis said it right. I think Cletis' point was right on the mark there, that technology is an enabler of knowledge workers, right? That's what technology is, and that's how it's best leveraged, right? You can't replace the creativity, the knowledge, essentially, of people with technology, right? What we want to do is enable them, to give them a lever. Right? We want to give them a lever to be able to get 2x, 3x done of what they want to achieve outside of technology, right? So in that context, I think the low-code, no-code platform allows not only IT workers, our technology solutions, but business solutions, with enabling them through, citizen development and other techniques and, processes we are helping our clients with, is to say, hey, business operations people who have the knowledge on the ground can now deliver solutions on these platforms, while as a CIO, you can still manage the risk because it's on platforms that are approved and managed and controlled by IT, right? So I think in that context, in the context of the workforce problem that I think, Cletis, you went deep into, right? I think that was a wonderful conversation for me to hear. Because that's exactly what we hear from most of our clients, which is, hey, there is a challenge for all of us as we deal with the workforce hiring, right? So there is an aspect of coming out of pandemic. What has happened is folks got used to remote work, right? Because you had to. There was no choice. You had to deal with remote working, which was not necessarily always the case in large health systems. I'm sure, Cletis, as you look back, right, there's been a history where X number of people used to come, and now there is a little more openness to say it's okay. We have built the policies and procedures for you to work from home, right? In that context, now health systems, I know, look at Providence. They have gone Providence, India altogether, right? They're looking at global workforce. They're saying, hey, we can now take benefit of global workforce that's available to us, and that's a conversation a lot of our customers are starting to have with us. Hey, how do we do global delivery, right? There are benefits associated with global delivery, both in terms of talent acquisition, having more hours in a day because the time zones are different, right? So you get more productivity coming out of that aspect of it. And then more and more importantly, how do we leverage these tools and the investments we have made with low-code, no-code platforms, along with a global delivery model, to deliver the value going into 2023, right? So that's a topic of conversations we are having with a lot of health systems. I don't know, Cletis, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, Harsh, I think, your point about, what I call what is called follow the sun methodology. There was a true reservation to going down that road for certain industries. And now, again, due to the pandemic, it's naturally occurring, right? Because people are now working from anywhere and everywhere. And it's interesting because now we're getting that, if we have people living on the West Coast or wherever, sometimes out of the country with some reservations again, we have that workforce now naturally, right? Natively. And we need to think about that as it comes, this is to now change that model. But going back to your no code piece, I thought it was very interesting because, look, as I said earlier, the future is now, right? We are here, we're at that tipping point. It's no longer 10 years from now. Chat GPT, right? That is all the rage right now. And this is a perfect example of a chatbot, which is, intelligent automation, right? It is a perfect example where artificial intelligence is now taking a new, reign of methodology. And, it's whether it's writing its own poem or checking code, right? I truly think that these are the game changer events that are going to occur. And as more competitors come into that space, it's going to just, truly be a tsunami worth of opportunity for us as it continues. And we continue to find other opportunities of what intelligent automation needs to, because I think it's going to redefine us and continue to change. And I know people may not like me saying this, but when I talk to, kids that are in school and others, and hey, I want to be a programmer. You probably should need to rethink that, right? Not to say that you shouldn't be a programmer, but you need to probably think about what that future would look like. And rather than being the traditional Java, the C++ programmer, maybe you're thinking about how do you program the AI, right? Learn that side of it, because that's going back to Harsh's point, we're going to need that skill set, right? That's why I always talk about skilling up. We're going to need that talent to make sure that improving the biases associated to artificial intelligence, right? And you see this happen a lot, particularly in African-American community, that those who program, the computers are programming their biases. So there's so much more that needs to be done. And I think industries are going to continue to be created. So it's recreation is the thing we need to promote, not necessarily, obliteration. That kind of rhymes, but you understand industries, and that's what I think we need to really emphasize more.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Harsh, what a beautiful way to describe it. You don't want to take the human creativity away from them and try to replace it with automation. In fact, in many ways, you're augmenting them to have that opportunity to use their creativity. I think that's such a beautiful way to describe what, you both just described. Prashant, maybe you could chime in here on what are some of the top areas where you see this automation applied. Cletis shared some of what he's doing. What do you see from the Genzeon perspective, where can people automate and what's the impact that it can already have?
Yeah. So as automation, as I said, has been here for a while, I would say, right? Because automation, if you think about it, really started when, Windows operating system became prevalent. People started getting macros on Excel. It was a form of automation.
That's true, huh? Good example.
Really, it's not new, but it's matured, right? But the word intelligence is the new part, right? That's why I say automation with intelligence. That's the only reason why we say that. Intelligence, the whole, NLP, RPA. The analogy I like to give is, if you want to think of a digital worker, right? The analogy I give is, hey, the brains of the digital worker is really machine learning algorithms. The eyes is computer vision or OCR, right? The ability to understand language, speak, it's really NLP, NLU, NLG, right? But what all these things do, they give you an output, they give you an outcome. They don't really, to act on it, you need hands and legs like humans, and that's where RPA comes in, right? That's what the holistic view of automation is, right? Now, given that paradigm or given that context, the way I would look at use cases, again, it's a spectrum of use cases here, right? From simple to very complex, right? Simple, again, when citizen development is a fantastic, they're with low code, no code platform, they're solving simple problems which exist, which typically do not get solved and get buried in the long tail of problems, as I say, right? Always the bigger problems get solved, ones which get investment gets solved for, right? But the smaller problem, hey, I'm creating this report manually and spend 10 minutes every day on it, right? No, that never gets any attention, right? So low code, no code platform is really enabling those citizen developers to solve their own problem. And that really is the one end of the spectrum where small problems are getting solved, but the magnitude of that impact is felt when you scale it up, right? So that's where really the impact comes in, right? And obviously, you need the right governance to Cletis, what he was saying. The governance structure needs to be across the spectrum of use cases. You need right governance so that, again, you don't want things to break or what you get built. You don't want it to create a business impact, negative business impact. You always want positive business impact. So from that point of view, governance is very much needed, even for smaller use cases also, even with citizen development, right? And in Genzeon, we have frameworks which we use our client to help them think about how to scale citizen development, right? So again, that's one end of the spectrum. And then from there, as you move, you again hit the use cases that can be solved through RPA, right? So I would say, in the whole finance and accounting side of the street, any organization has that, right? Monthly reports, quarterly reports, which go out, you're updating the general ledger. Many of those activities are today done manually, right? You can actually automate that quickly. Those are rules-driven automation, which an RPA kind of solution can easily solve for, right? Then when I come to the middle of the spectrum of the use cases, I would say chatbot is a great example, right? Which is there's some rules there, but also some intelligence there, right? Medical coding is another great example, which impacts the RCM space, right? Today, still there are a lot of medical coding being done manually. Today there are algorithms, out-of-the-box algorithms, right? NLP algorithms, which goes to the text, spits out ICD-10 codes, right? Risk adjustment is another great use case. Again, applies more to payers, right? But again, similar construct, medical coding. Again, that's the chatbot. All that would come in the middle spectrum, right? And as you go to the right side, you get more, I would say, use cases which is closer to the customer, is how I see it, right? And it's more complex. There is more variability in data. There are more scenarios that need to solve for, right? One example, which I was talking to one of our customers who has a problem, health system, right, who has a problem with no-show rates, right? So they're scheduling appointments, but they get canceled, and then hey, providers time get wasted, right? How do you manage the no-show rates? Can we create algorithms based on the data we have to say predict and manage that no-show rate, so the not only customer experience improve, but also your internal employees experience improve, right? And finally, when I go to the extreme end, I mean, really complex use cases today is, hey, machine learning algorithms today are looking at X-rays, MRIs to predict, potentially recommend clinical outcomes sometimes, right? So those are really complex use cases, right? Again, I think there's still more maturity that needs to come in those set of use cases, right? But the simpler use cases are already a commodity. If people are not doing, they should be doing it now. It's easy to do.
Yeah. If I could add to that, Prashant, because you're spot on. I think that again, future is now. There are industries, as an example, my plumber, right? There are plumbers that are using intelligent automation right now, and the digital experience, and really or your veterinarian, right? If you do this, it's a kind of very Boolean methodology, all done on the back end. It's creating a customer experience. It's creating, hey, if you need to make the change, it's if you say I cancel this, then they put you into the next slot, right? That level of automation is occurring, intelligent automation is occurring in certain sectors. Imagine what the future lies. And as an example, if you go into the clinical space, we're academic, we have research, we have all of these things. What about cancer care and the genomic side? When, you turn these bots into that level of automation, right? To be able to say, hey, you're unfortunately diagnosed with X, here goes these trials. Here we are tying you with these clinical trials at the genetic level, as well as, just other types of trials that are occurring. So there's so many different opportunities, future opportunities for the advancements of this technology that really goes on that right side that Prashant was talking about, right? When we really start talking about the deeper things, and again, predictive, real, in-depth pieces where you're able to say, okay, imagine you putting a bot out. We have reason why cybersecurity is huge, and why actors come after healthcare is because we have the holy grail of information, right? We have everything. So the key here is we have a lot of it, long-standing information of it, 20, 30 years of data. Imagine turning those bots to the good, to be able to say, hey, we're now able to predict that a potential outcome, and because we're able to predict it, maybe you need to do this, if it's coupled with the genetic material, the genetic, findings. So there's the art of the possible, right? The art of what it's going to do for us real soon. And some of our healthcare providers in the industry are already doing this, but it's in my opinion, we're at the infancy stage of something that's really great, because there's going to be much better return where this automation is going to occur. And originally, traditionally, it's done and it takes weeks or it takes months to get the right clinical trial in front, in front of somebody. But now it's going to take seconds, click of a button, boom, you now have it, and you have the referral in, and now you're able to get that done. And really, rather than taking a elongated time, you're able to get the right patient in the right hands so that they can actually start having positive impact to the care.
Yeah. And the summary of all this to me is that everything's going to be impacted by intelligent automation. I think that maybe that's the opportunity and the challenge. And what an interesting point that these no-code, low-code solutions can solve some of those problems that were never large enough for a project plan or a real solution. I think that's a fascinating perspective as well. Yeah. Well, as we wrap up here, Cletis, maybe you can give us some final thoughts. What should a CIO know when it comes to intelligent automation as you look into this future that they have to embrace?
Yeah, I just think, as I said earlier, one of the pieces, it's work. It's not something, it's not a click, point and click scenario. I think, CIOs need to embrace it. There's no question. If you're not embracing this process, you're doing a disservice. I mean, we all have, the executives have the fiduciary responsibility to act and do the right thing, whether it's at the stewardship level, financial stewardship level, or just at the patient care level. I think we need to be able to incorporate these technologies, right? In some cases, align with the right partner that can get us there. Because, during the time where we're trying to figure it out, we may not have the appropriate skill set, in order to get that done. So you align with an organization that is able to do it. There are plenty of them. I'm talking with a couple right now, but at the end of the day, you have to commit, right? As CIOs, we have to commit in order to move the dial forward. The biggest challenge that we're going to encounter is that concept of, is this going to replace my job? Right? That's basically the biggest concern. I talked about that early with the EMR and the providers. The answer is kind of, sort of, right? It may help you, but we need to retool you, reskill you, get you to be able to do something else. And that work is on the executives, right? It's the IT people to be able to reposition people, right? And saying, hey, this is how your job is changing, so that we can actually have the best potential outcome for this technology that's going to help. And once that occurs and then you're successful doing that, people don't have to be let go. They just need to be retooled in a different way and repositioned to have absolute success. And then also they get a feather in their hat, right? So they've now become even more attractive to the job market. We don't want to lose them, but they actually become now more, marketable within the industry. And it's a win-win situation. Win for the person, win for the individual, and win for the company.
Yeah.
I think, Cletis, that's a wonderful point to end this on, right? I think at the end of the day, we are all trying to move up our teams and our workforce up the value chain, right? So, so they are more productive, they are more successful, and we as organizations are more successful. I really loved the way you framed it throughout this conversation. The future is now, and in this ecosystem of healthcare, we need partners. We need partners to work with and to be successful in this journey. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And, in any partnership, it takes two to tango, right? So I think you highlighted that really well. Well, thanks so much, Harsh, Prashant, Cletis. I appreciate you sharing these insight and perspectives into really an important topic and the future of healthcare technology. So thanks so much. And thanks everyone for watching and listening. If you want to find more great healthcare IT content like this, be sure to check it out at healthcareittoday.com or search for Healthcare IT Today on your favorite podcast application. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks a lot.